Hey guys, welcome to CarCast. I'm Matt, the moderator D'Andria, with Bill Goldberg on the line with us. I believe we're going to be recording some video for this, so if you guys want to see us sitting around in our homes, you can do that, as well as the hear the podcast. Before we get started, just a shout out to our friends at Dodge with Dodge Power Dollars. For every horsepower of your new Dodge vehicle purchase, you'll get $10 off. So peeling out in a 2019 Dodge Charger RT Scat Pack, well, you just got $4,580 off. All right, well, good to see you, Bill. How's the ranch? Looks like
it's great, man. Like I said, I feel guilty that I'm quarantined on 140 acres, so there's always something to do, and I've changed my daily driver from these Challengers to a Kubota. So
yeah,
there is a plethora of things to do on this property, but it's all good. Fingers crossed, man.
Thinking about the time change difference, and you're already up. You're working out there for a few hours already before we even get started.
Yeah, well, yes. Side note: if you've been keeping up with Charger, the three-legged sheep, last night was the first night that he hasn't been here at the house. We let him go. One of the vet assistants wanted to take him for a couple of days, and so needless to say, I got my first night of sleep unabated by a sheep wanting to get fed in the middle of the night. So I was up bright and early this morning at 6:30 ready to go. So I've been out in the yard for a number of hours prior to us getting on this call.
I follow your wife Wanda on social media, and she's just constantly posting about, well, of course, all the animals, but the sheep. And I tough gig for you, tough gig for the sheep, but adorable. Always looks happy, playing around with the dog all the time. Of course, she's not posting you guys getting up in the middle of the night while the thing's crying and you're trying to.
No, because she's sleeping now, and now it's been turned over to me. But hey, what are husbands for? That's what
right.
No, if it's not a baby, it's a three-legged sheep waking me up at 1:30 in the morning, wanting to be fed. Hey,
yeah,
all. It's all good, man.
So Gage is not really into getting up and feeding the sheep in the middle of the night.
Oh God, you're kidding me, right? that kid with this social distancing thing, and with the schools being closed, if he gets up by 8 o'clock, that's very unusual. But
oh yeah,
I'm gonna start going in there in his clothes hamper and getting his dirty underwear and putting them on his head about 7 o'clock in the morning, just to be a nice wake up call to tell him that he needs to get off his ass and be productive.
Yeah, help out around there, move stuff around. All right, well, glad you guys are doing well over there. And
how are you? How are you over there in the land of the lost?
Good. Surprisingly, because I live in Venice, out here in California, and things are still pretty active. Obviously the freeways, far less cars and people around, and everybody in the stores are wearing the masks and stuff, like as you would expect. But still, like, a surprising amount of activity. It's not like Night of the Comet out here. It's not like a total ghost town with just like the old tumbleweed blowing down Venice Boulevard. Like right next door to me, they're building an apartment complex, and you're going to hear it throughout the show. It's just constant construction and boring into the ground and digging a underground parking garage, and there's cars out there. So, and everyone's doing podcasting just from home. It's just it is different. Just honestly, it just doesn't seem quite as, I don't know, ghost towny as you would think. I guess there are a lot more essential businesses than we realize.
Yes.
Oh, and I just read yesterday that I don't know what's going to be. Speaking of essential or not essential, I just read yesterday that WWE was deemed essential in Florida, in Tampa. It
So,
wasn't originally, and now it is.
Obviously, you know my thoughts on that. Hey, anytime you can get any entertainment out there now, of normal, kind of as normal as productions were prior. Anytime you can get new content out there, it's good for people's soul. Again, you're between a rock and a hard place. Do you feel irresponsible, or do you feel like you're providing a service? There's a little bit of both. You're not going to be able to satiate everybody in the world, but the reality is that it's one of the only things going, and it's valuable content, and I'm sure they have very lengthy legal deals with Fox, putting on a number of live shows per year. That probably falls into it also. But hey, when I was there, and whether they had somebody test positive or not, they did as good of a job as humanly possible of cleaning and disinfecting the performance center, literally in between matches. So they're going above and beyond. It's left up to each individual in their opinion about it being a necessary business, but they are providing content, and they're providing people an escape, and they're doing it a responsible way. So let's please move on.
Right. Yeah. Look, we're trying to do that here as well. We're going to be trying to do that here as well. So unfortunately this week, and as of today, just a few hours ago, we got word about some sad news in our world. Of course, it's been out there for days now that Stirling Moss, legendary race car driver, had passed away. He was 90 years old. He was the tiny bald guy that you guys have seen out there, but just a fantastic. We saw him at Goodwood as well, and maybe the younger audience doesn't know him as much. Probably heard his name. Not a lot of people are rolling around with the name Stirling Moss. Just kind of like, if he was like Bill Moss, would you know him, right? Like he was, or Steve Moss, right? Like he was
British guy, Stirling.
Yeah, Stirling Moss, and it's funny because also like Parnelli Jones. Parnelli's his middle name, so, and he's so memorable as Parnelli Jones because of that. So Stirling Moss, who was 90, was a great Formula One driver. He was really regarded as one of the more technical drivers out there. Surprisingly, had never won an F1 championship, but had a fantastic career. He won 16 of 66 F1 races. He was just a fantastic guy. Now he was in a pretty bad accident way back in the day when he was 31 years old. So here's a guy that crashed in 1962 and I believe was left in a coma for a while. I don't know exactly for how long. And it really kind of ended his professional racing career, but managed to keep himself in the limelight and basically relevant in the racing world by just being a good guy and a good racer, for 60 years after retiring. So
that's longevity.
Yeah, it is, and I think we'll later in the week, Adam Lau will dig a little bit deeper into the Stirling Moss career. So you guys want to check out that maybe on Friday we'll do that show. But look, 90 is a hell of a long time. I'm sure a lot of us wish to get to there. This guy, he did it, and he was a good dude. So
he was racing when they had no seatbelts, for God's sakes.
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah. Right. Well, that might be taking it a little far, but the safety restrictions were quite different back when he was racing.
Yeah.
So to know that he lived at 90 years old after all the stuff that he went through, I'm sure those were some unbelievable 90 years.
You think about the cars back then, the technology, the safety equipment, the helmets, everything. It's just amazing that the different generations of these guys, the Mario Andretti's of the world, as well. He was a little bit after this, but it's amazing what these guys were doing in the 50s.
Under the circumstances. Wow.
Yeah, right. In the 50s racing. But anyway, he will be missed, and just a good all-around guy. And then, of course, a friend that you guys may know is a guy named Mike Lavallee. Unfortunately, Mike Lavallee had suffered a stroke a few days ago, and I believe it was Tuesday night. Just trying to do the math on when you're listening to this. Tuesday night, unfortunately, he passed away. I believe he was in the hospital still. Mike Lavallee was a fantastic painter, airbrusher. If you guys are fans of Overhauling, he had done a number of episodes of Overhauling, and he kind of mastered the real flames, like the real fire of flames, and which is just an amazing airbrush guy and talented painter. And I met him, never had a chance to have a real conversation or anything with him, but everybody that's ever worked with him, I loved him, said what a wonderful guy he was. And here's the indication. It's like, you go and you do something, especially in the professional world, right? You let's say, Bill, you do a commercial, or you do a TV show or a guest spot appearance on something. It's all about that second date. It's do you get invited back? Because if you get invited back, that's the impression you want to give people. It's like, you want to go in.
It's a testament to your character and your work.
Yeah. If somebody goes, hey, I like this guy. This guy works hard. He's fun to be around. Let's get him back here. And I don't know how many episodes of Overhauling Mike Lavallee has done, but he was always welcome back again and again. The people loved him. So that's always just sort of a good indication of like a good dude. So I don't recall how old he was, but he will be missed. You guys can see his website is killerpaint.com. I don't know what happens from here. It's all very new, but you can certainly still go to the website. And
Mike was a friend of mine. I've known Mike years, and he was a wonderful guy. There's no question about that. And
yeah, there's
he's the flame guy. We had that's Garage Mahal. What Brutzman and I did that. That was actually the first episode that we shot of Garage Mahal right there.
Yeah.
And if you fill the airwave for like 15 seconds, I think about 10 feet away from me is a Mike Lavallee helmet creation. So let me grab it real quick.
Yeah, okay. It's kind of interesting on
sorry, while he's grabbing it, Mike was 60.
Mike was 60.
Yeah.
Yeah. 60's young, man. Like, it's just that's a tough hand to get dealt for such a good dude. I want to say that Garage Mahal was probably 10 years ago.
Yes, this was my first Mike Lavallee creation.
Yeah, look at that.
No flames, but I think he got the Goldberg Who's Next thing dialed in pretty damn good. I mean, the only thing that was better about Mike than his ability was his character. And he was just a terrific guy, and you couldn't have said it any better. It's your performance and your livelihood is based upon getting that call back. And this was the first, and it surely was not the last of the helmets that he did for me. And he was a staple on Overhauling, like you said. The only thing better about him than the quality was the quality of person that he was. So to his friends and family, man, condolences.
And I apologize to you as well, because I know he was a friend of yours, and you're just finding out basically now on the air that he passed away.
I knew through Chris Jacobs and his site, his Instagram, that Mike had fallen ill, but I didn't know how serious it was. So.
Yeah, no, the guy's been reaching out. Aaron Hagar that I do shift and steer with was really good. Aaron's is a fantastic artist as well, and painter and airbrusher, and he does helmets, and he had a big background in set building, movies and TV and stuff. So he knew Mike pretty well. So he was texting this morning going, "Hey, you guys, bad news. Mike's gone." But anyway, you mentioned
Always here.
yeah, you mentioned Garage Mahal, which was about 10 years ago. I want to say that's probably the first time you and I met in person. I mean, you probably were a big fan of mine and heard about me for a long time.
Well, there's no question. I've been stalking you for about 5 years prior to that. So.
But I think it was Garage Mahal. I think we did a build over at Adam's studio, the back half of the studio, and it was I had worked. I don't know if that was the first thing that I worked with Bud Brutzman on. Bud Brutzman is a television producer. He's done a million shows, but he kind of really started the mainstream automotive TV stuff with that show Rides, the docuseries.
I was going to say that's what interests me about his work, and I wanted to meet him, and ironically I was signing autographs somewhere where he had somebody also signing autographs, and he was the man in black. The guy's never worn anything but black.
No, I
don't have a problem with, by any means. But I met him there, and he's an interesting guy for sure. He has his own way of going about business, but he's very successful in that car space. He's unparalleled, if you ask me.
And I know he's ended up doing a bunch of other shows, but Overhauling originated with him. Rides originated with him. Living the Low Life, Lowrider show. A number of other shows right now. I think you did the one with Bodie Stroud and Brett Michaels,
we did
the RV
Optima
show.
Yeah, we did Optima together.
Oh, that's right, the Optima.
And that's where I met Bodie.
Yeah, that's right. Those guys as well. So he's done a bunch of shows. I think the new Overhauling shows might be Bud Brutzman as well that are on Motor Trend app. But yeah, we met on Garage Mahal. And Adam had there's kind of a little car area in the back of his studio, and he had built like a countertop, like the length of the building, the width of the building out in the back, and there's a bunch of guys over there just trying to take out the screws and get it all done. But Adam had it pretty overbuilt because he was figuring it's gonna be a lot of weight and stuff on it. And it wasn't going anywhere. I just remember you just went over there and
I know where this is going.
Just smashed the top of it. The whole thing just came crumbling down, and then you just tore it off the wall. And then it was it. It was done. And then it was just cleanup crew. And then you walked out. You're like, there, it's done. We don't have all day. It was fantastic. It was actually such a huge time saver to just tear it off the wall. The wall was brick. It's gonna be fine. But it worked out. It worked out good. You guys did Jay Leno's garage as well, his personal garage.
Yeah, we did that. We did the one at his house and put a turntable right in the middle of that damn thing. It was. I loved that show. They kind of bait and switch me because I thought it was a complete garage show, but it's a themed garage show where we go in and if a guy's kid was into BMX bikes, we turn it into like a BMX garage. Actually, that's partly what the first one was, but it was a great show. It was a lot of fun and met some great guys. I met you, met Lavallee, met Bodie, met a bunch of great guys in the automotive space during that show.
I've been talking to Bodie Stroud. You guys know him on CarCast quite a bit as well. But I was talking to Bodie recently, and everybody's kind of shut down, but he's just popping over to his shop and by himself and doing a little bit of work here and there on some of the car projects he has. Any of these hot rod shops, anybody's out there, it's not like you're sitting on tons of money. Like, you've got to still do some work when you can. Like, here we're doing podcasting and you try to get the business running so you have some kind of income going on. But We talked a while on my truck about upgrading the steering, doing a quick ratio steering box. And I got the box from Flaming River, and I did all the measurements on it, the box size, the pivot arm spline count, the angle, all of it's the same, except the mounting bolts are different. The Ford box is 3 bolts, the GM box is 4 bolts, and the frame has like these standoffs on it where you bolt it, the steering box onto. So the frame needs to be like you imagine the box frame, the inside of it needs to be cut, new piece of metal welded on.
Sorry.
And that's probably Bodie. New piece of metal welded on with new mounting bolts, and then you can get this thing to work. So we're just trying to figure it out. That I think Bodie's going to do the work for me because he's a fantastic fabricator and welder, and maybe I can just drop off the truck and leave the keys, and the next day he kind of just pops over into his shop, and the truck will be there waiting for him, and everyone's social distancing and still getting some stuff done. But we're talking about it. We're trying to figure it out. But he's also home with his family and doing some stuff. But
your build is so entertaining, I got to tell you, because you're falling victim to what we all fall victim to. You get one new part.
Yeah.
You have to replace everything that's connected to it. So you're providing me with a lot of entertainment throughout this build.
And I'm just scratching the surface.
I knew from the beginning what you said about how far you were going to go with it. And that always changes. And it doesn't always change daily. It changes hourly, So.
Yeah, it really does. And you guys know that I've been talking about the speed sensor and the gauges that on the back of the gauge clusters, there's this thing called the PSOM, and it's a board. It's like a computer board, and it ties into the vehicle speed sensor and the rear differential. It controls the shift points of the transmission electronically. It controls the ABS brakes, and it controls the accuracy of the speedometer. And the sensor on top of the rear axle housing, inside there's a gear. There's a tooth ring, this tone ring, and the sensor on top of the housing is basically like a magnet. And as these teeth swing by, it pulls an accurate reading. So what's happening is I've replaced the sensors, 2 different ones, to try to get an accurate reading. It's still not accurate, which means, unfortunately, the tone ring itself is probably damaged, worn down, or a chipped tooth or something. And although I just had the rear brakes installed, I had the Eaton True Track differential, the Ford 355 gears. I did all of that work, but nobody really noticed the tone gear in there. So now I have to replace the tone gear, which means everything has to come apart again. So to your point, Bill, is yes, I was like, I don't want to have to pay, I don't know how much money to pull that whole thing apart just to replace $100 tone ring. So now I'm going to replace the axles as well. Now, I tried to do this before, and I was thinking about it mostly because when you had the guys from Gearhead Fabrications come out and swap the rear differential on your car, when that broke, I was thinking, yeah, maybe a little bit of preventative maintenance here is the right thing.
Yep.
There aren't any over-the-counter axles for the 95 Light. I guess I don't know if it's the width or the way it's set up or the axle housings or whatever. So they have to be made. So I've got this form with that, I posted, I think, on my social media. It's got this crazy form with all of the information, and you got to take all the measurements and send it over to somebody that builds axles. And right now I'm talking to the guys at Mark Williams. They build a fantastic axle. It'll still be 31 spline, but much stronger. And this is the part I didn't know. So the axles go in, and there's a C-clip that snaps on. That part I knew. And there's been an upgrade for a long time called a C-clip eliminator. And it's like a bearing, it's like an aluminum housing, kind of squarish. There's a bearing in there, and it's much stronger than the flimsy little C-clip. So my thought was, go with C-clip eliminators, really strengthen it up, and with the new axles and the hardened steel, it'll work great. But in talking to a bunch of these guys that build the axles, they're saying, hey, the C-clip eliminator is good for drag racing, but on the street or even hitting an autocross or a road course, that bearing and that axle that's in there shifts a little bit, and it causes that whole bearing thing to leak. So the fix now is yeah, so there's nobody wants that
because it's happening to you and not me. That's all.
Yeah. Oh well, great, thanks. So we got to take the we're going to take the axle housing, the ends where the flanges are, those will be cut off. New upgraded flanges will be put on there that eliminate the C-clips and the C-clip eliminators. It's the fix. It's the ultimate fix to doing all of that. So we're going to have custom axles made. We're going to have new flanges welded onto the housing, and the whole thing will be both packed together. But I'm telling you, trying to get the measurements of this rear axle housing and all the things you need to get, it's not just the total width, just the space between the flange and the brakes, and is there a little rise for the bearing seal, and trying to get these measurements while
just send them the whole unit and let them measure.
That's what I keep trying to tell them that. I was like, why don't I just send you guys this thing? Because the idea of like trying to drive the truck to the shop, put it up on jack stands, pull a wheel off, start measuring and seeing what's accurate, because the brakes are still on it and everything. Like, you should take all that off to get an accurate measurement. So you're trying to do the math of like the rotor is, 300ths of an inch, and then if you add that to the total, it's just, so
if you end up doing it yourself, all I have to say is good luck. Because,
so
it's nothing but, well, I'm not going to tell you.
I dug into it, did it all yesterday, and then I emailed the guy all the information, and then he's like, yeah, some of this math's not adding up.
Exactly. Then why don't you do it?
And I was like, okay, I believe you, and I was like, hey man, this is what you guys do. Like, don't you have some catalog of measurements? He's like, well, we don't have the 95 Lightning in our catalog. I was like, yeah, I know that, but you're telling me that the Broncos and the F-150s, there's not a million of trucks out there that have basically the same rear end. There's no way that the 95 Lightning was so special that they're going to go, hey, we're going to do a whole custom rear end and charge $19,000 for the truck back then. I was like, there's got to be some catalog of information out there where the guys go, hey, I think you meant this. Like, we've seen 100 of these rear ends, and I think you meant this was the size. But I don't know. We're getting into it, and
Good luck.
If you would have asked me right before we started recording this, I would have said the axles are going to be made. But 30 seconds before we started, I got the email back going, yeah, these measurements aren't right. So
back to the drawing board.
Yeah, kind of back to the drawing board. But I spent like half a day yesterday taking the truck apart and pulling the rotors off,
what
and
else
the calipers
do you have
off.
to do?
I don't know. It's just a pain in the ass to have to do it again. And I don't know, but that's kind of where we are with that kind of craziness. Anyway, we'll keep going because I can talk all day about that stupid thing. What's going on in your garage over there? I see cars back there. Are you getting anything done, or just working on the ranch there?
Well, no, I'm not getting anything done on these cars, but the Charger's down at Deerhead Fabrications. They got the parachute mechanism, everything mounted properly on my daily driver. No, but they're. I think the fenders were sent from Speed Core down. I do believe they're doing all the plumbing for the turbos right now, 60 to 90 days, we're looking at completion. So, probably when when everything's lifted, I'll be able to have my car back. But we'll see.
Yeah.
There's, there's lots that we're deciding on right now. We're deciding on the rear wheels, the width of the tires, the offsets, and just every little single detail about rebuilding a car. Paint scheme, what we're going to do with the carbon fiber. I think we may go a different color with the carbon fiber. As I look at the Challenger that Speedcore did and Gearhead Fabrications did, it's bitching, but I don't want a car exactly like it. So we're gonna change the paint scheme up a little bit and do some exposed colored carbon and have some fun with it. My favorite color is blue, so I gotta throw a little dark blue or a little maybe petty kind of blue or something in with that black, man. It's got to look good.
Yeah, I think that'll look pretty good. The black wide body, the carbon fiber Challenger that you had at SEMA, that came out fantastic because the car's black and obviously the carbon, is pretty close to being all black. But they did the right combination, as you can see now, is in leaving some of the carbon fiber exposed, but then showing off, and then some of it exposed on the black car. So that presented really well. But you're right. Maybe like on that Challenger right there, you have the carbon fiber fenders on it as well. So it can, you have the SRT stripes done in carbon fiber, but doing a red carbon or a blue carbon on that. But is the Charger getting carbon fiber fenders or just the wide body is all carbon fiber?
Just the wide body and the flares, the wide body, the deck lid, the hood, stuff like that. Same thing, minus the fenders.
Yeah, I don't know if they even do fenders yet for the Charger. Speedcore.
If anybody does, it's Speedcore. So
yeah,
I don't know if they offer them yet, but that's a good question.
Yeah, it's probably going to show up on their menu at some point, but because the all-wheel drive turbo car that they was in the MagnaFlow booth, I don't think that was all carbon fiber. I don't think it had the carbon fiber fenders and everything. I think it had the other stuff that you're talking about, the flares and the hood and stuff. But and they might have done like a front bumper cover because I remember it having cutouts in it for the intakes on the turbos. Yeah.
I got to look at it more in detail, but I'd be curious to find out if they had availability on those carbon fenders.
Yeah. Huh. Anyway, before we wrap up, I know you're a NASCAR guy. You've done quite a bit with them, and our friends over at the track over there gave us some tickets to the races, and we sent people out. But everyone's doing the iRacing or virtual racing, simulator racing. Last week, Adam and I spoke to Simon Pagino from his home. He did a video chat with us. He was telling about the iRacing program and rescheduling of the Indy 500 to August. And he built this whole rig of the iRacing thing with 3 monitors and all that stuff. And oh, by the way, his dog, Norman Pagino, got so famous after Indy 500 from all his photos that he got sponsored.
Oh, my God.
So Norman Pagino gets to buy his own food now.
Let's see if we can get Charger sponsored.
Charger needs to get sponsored. His fee is a lot, his expenses are a lot greater, but
yeah.
Anyway, over at NASCAR, I don't know if you had a chance to meet Kyle Larson, but Kyle Larson was participating in the iRacing. I don't know if it's iRacing specifically that they were doing. They were doing the virtual racing, some entertainment for everybody, and I got himself a little bit in trouble. Somewhere during the broadcast, I believe he was talking to like his spotter, and he said, "Hey," he's like, "Can you hear me?" N-word, and he used N-word, and I I think he was just doing it like jokingly because obviously his
Doesn't
spotter,
matter.
yeah, but it didn't go over well. I'm not even sure like
Well,
how it comes up sort of.
First NASCAR suspends him, and then he gets fired yesterday.
Yeah, so what was happening was, you're right, NASCAR suspended him, saying it's kind of out of line, especially for something that's meant to be kind of fun, and in lieu of racing, we're trying to fill the gap with some some virtual racing. And it wasn't like he was arguing with somebody or yelling at somebody. He was talking to his spotter.
It wasn't in a malicious tone.
No, it wasn't, but the whole thing was stupid.
Means, but it's still stupid.
Just like why say it? Why do it? But NASCAR needed to suspend him. And then Chip Ganassi, who is a fan of his, obviously, and runs the team that he races for, he was saying, Kyle, bad news, man. Our sponsors are calling, and they're all saying this is not a reflection of what we want our athletes to be. And I think this is an important thing. You being, building a career as an athlete, is I do agree there is some responsibility to public athletes that are, of course, are being sponsored with huge brands and money. If somebody's coming in and going, hey, Tiger Woods, I'm Nike or so-and-so, you're going to get paid a bunch of money. It doesn't matter if it's $5,000 or $14 million. When you accept that money, you're representing that company, and there should be some standard that you need to be held to by saying, hey, we're representing you because we like you and we think you're a good guy and you're a good athlete. But as soon as you take our money, you need to uphold those values.
I think that's an understatement. I mean, there's a huge responsibility for someone such as myself or Kyle Larson or Michael Jordan or whoever it may be. I'm in no way, shape, or form comparing myself, but you have a responsibility to the people who employ you, to the people who you are an extension of their product. You have a huge responsibility also as a human being to conduct yourself in a proper way in 2020.
Yeah.
And I'll just end there. I mean, it's a responsibility that should be upheld, and if you don't, then there should be. Thank God there are repercussions, and surely he can make his way back. There's no question about it.
Well, that's the thing.
People need a second chance.
That's the thing. Is Chip Ganassi says, "Love you, Kyle. This is unfortunate what happened here. You should have never said that. Sponsors are pulling out of this. I have no choice but to let you go. Otherwise, I've still got to run a business. I've got to get a car on the track, and all this money is going to walk away if I don't let you go." Right. So he's out. So he basically gets fired. It doesn't mean there's not a future for him at some point with Chip Ganassi or another team. I'm sure
they've already stated they'll bring him back.
They're saying they're open to it for sure. And look, another team, he's still a good driver. Another team could pick him up. It just means he's going to get picked up at a much lower salary and say, hey, we'll take a chance on you. But of course, now you have to be on your best behavior. And the only way to earn those big dollars again is now it's going to take years for you to get back to where you were. So the question that I think people are asking was, what he said was not good, but he didn't say it like in an argument or a malicious intent, like you said. Is the punishment exceeding the crime? Or
it's a business. If your sponsors back out because of a driver that you employ, you're not running a fiscally responsible business company, because you're not filling positions with people that you should be representing your company if they act in a manner such as that, whether it was a mistake or not. I understand there's a difference between being malicious and just having a goofy adolescent mistake, but you should be
Yeah.
You should prepare yourself in every situation for the worst and make sure that it never happens. And his train of thought needs to change.
You know, it's you're right. And from a business standpoint, I would say overall, it feels like the punishment is too big, but not from the individual business standpoint. Because if a sponsor is McDonald's and Credit One Bank, or I believe are two of the sponsors, and Chevrolet as well, they may say, okay, this is bad. We don't think you should lose your career over this, but something needs to be done. But there isn't one of these companies that can be the exception to the punishment rule. So if Chevrolet says you're out and Credit One Bank says you're out, McDonald's can't say, oh, we think you got punished enough. We're good with you. Because then McDonald's is going, oh, so you endorse this behavior. So each one of these companies needs to look at it individually. And because of that, it all piles up and says, unfortunately, you're out, you know.
Public perception means everything these days.
Yeah, it does, especially when it's a sponsor relationship. It's all about getting the word out there publicly, right?
Exactly.
That's what it is. If he was a scientist and he was building the cure for COVID-19 and he said something stupid, I can understand the pharmacy going, "Hey man, you need to get a hand slap here, but also you need to get your ass back into the lab, right?
Yeah.
Maybe your job now is." Your job is no more press releases, right? But, you know, if you're a CNN anchor or a racing car driver or whatever, like you have a responsibility publicly. So anyway, a whole unfortunate situation. And unfortunately, it puts like NASCAR and these sponsors all in a little bit of a bad light because it's, you know, why not just be nice, right? It would have been a great event, but instead of all the press surrounding the event it's now this. But anyway, so I was going through the news, going through more news stuff, and unfortunately, there's more like bad news, companies downsizing and stuff. So before we wrap up, I'm just going to leave a bit of good news for us enthusiasts in the car world. And I went to the launch of the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Even though it's called the Mustang, we've done this discussion. The Mach-E is the electric little SUV. It looks good. It had some good performance numbers. And now that some of these specs are starting to get leaked to the dealers on, because they're prepping dealers how to order the vehicles and stuff, it looks like it's going to have a little bit more power than Ford initially thought it was going to be.
Well, that's never a bad thing.
No, and it's not massive amounts, but you're looking at 15, 16, extra horsepower and another 10, 12 pound-feet of torque. But it just shows that they set some goals for certain ratings, like with distance and performance, and they need to balance that. In our cars, the cars behind you there's always a balance between miles per gallon and emissions versus the performance of the vehicle. Can you make that car?
Did they sacrifice anything for that extra performance?
No, it doesn't seem like it. That's why they were able to release the higher numbers, is they had the benefit of saying, hey, we can still achieve our whatever 230 mile or 280 mile, overall distance on the battery and still increase the performance. Now instead of 5.5 seconds, it could be 5.4 seconds, 0 to 60. And that translates to a little bit extra horsepower, a little bit extra torque. So that's kind of what we're doing. That the red eye behind you, if you just bought a red eye off the showroom floor, for $500, you could buy a handheld tuner and add some horsepower to it by just changing the air fuel ratio and whatever, right? Is it as efficient? Do you still get
the guys who have these red eyes don't give a flying flip about efficiency.
Right. So what we're really talking about is the manufacturer releasing the car in a very usable state between efficiency and horsepower and performance.
True.
And then as owners, we have the luxury of going, great, now I want to alter that. So Ford is saying, hey, if we met the 280 mile range, but we were able to knock a tenth off the 0 to 60, now we can reconfigure our numbers and say that it's a little bit more powerful. So that's kind of neat. And I'm still a fan of trying to drive one of these things when it comes out. Again, I don't care if it's called a Mustang or not, but I like the idea of Ford doing an all-electric vehicle. I'm not necessarily there yet on buying the all-electric vehicle. I kind of like what I like. We all do. Everything I have is old and loud, but and apparently needs axles. But I've driven the Tesla and a few other vehicles, and I am curious to see how this performs. I was in it. I rode in the Mach-E, but haven't had a chance to drive it. But I did drive, like I said, a Tesla, and I drove the Jaguar I-Pace. And this feels as close to an I-Pace as there is out there. That was fun to drive.
That's interesting comment there, because that I've heard nothing but great things about the I-Pace.
And so the I-Pace is interesting, and it moves great. The electric vehicle, it's fast. It's a good size, especially for LA, for city. It's got a little bit of height to it, so when you're hitting a bump or in and out of the driveways and the speed bumps, it's not an issue. But it's not like an SUV, and the Mach-E seems to kind of be the more affordable version of that. And
the market needs one of those, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so why not? So I'm a fan of having that out there. I mean, you're never going to take away the toys that I have and the toys that you have that we love, but I could see commuting in a Mach-E to the studio a few days a week when this whole lockdown lifts. And then I got my cars here that I fire up and tool on and have some fun with, and it's all good. But anyway, this interesting news about the Mach-E, and I think the performance of those vehicles, you're going to find better numbers than they initially thought when these actually hit showroom floors. So anyway, fun stuff. We're gonna wrap it up so I can go and do another podcast. Before I do, just a shout out to our friends at Dodge again. Reach out to your local Dodge dealer. There are guys over there. They bring you performance, technology, and great deals. And there's never been a better time right now, because Dodge is offering Power Dollars. With Power Dollars, you'll get $10 off for each horsepower of your new car. That's every Dodge Charger, every 2019 Dodge Challenger. Doesn't matter. It means you can pull away in a 2019 Dodge Charger RT Scat Pack with 485 horsepower and receive an almost $5,000 cash allowance. Remember when your cars only had 485 horsepower?
No.
No, you've doubled that.
That was a long time ago.
You've doubled that since then. So if you get more power, you get more off. It's that simple. Hurry into your local Dodge dealer, or just send them an email, give them a call. I'm sure they want to talk to you, and take advantage of Dodge Power Dollars. Cool. Thanks, buddy. So you're hop back on the tractor and get back out into on there.
I gotta put that little boy to work, and I don't mean the tractor. I mean Gage.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's probably up. Breakfast is done by now. It's got to be like noon.
Yeah, exactly. As long as he's done with his first online class, he's good.
Yeah, it's good. Got to get the schoolwork done. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you next week, and until next time, keep the air in the spare and the bag in the wheel.
And the wheels on the road. Spin.